And we're back in Inside the Ropes, and again we have a WWE Hall of Famer, and he is on a tour in the UK later on this month called The Voice of Wrestling, and it does exactly what it says in the tin. He is the one and only Hall of Famer, Jim Ross. Jim, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kenny. Thanks for having me.
So yeah, you're bringing your one-man show, your Voice of Wrestling spoken word tour over to the UK, but you've done this in the US, or you've done a couple of variations, I think. What made you decide to kind of get involved with these kind of shows?
Well, I've always been interested in communication and sharing my story with other wrestling fans. You know, I still consider myself a fan first, quite frankly, and I've always had an interest in public speaking and sharing my stories, as I mentioned. I think it may be also somewhat of a continuation of, or a substitution for being able to perform, you know, to be able to replace that little adrenaline rush that I missed by not doing weekly television. It's just another creative outlet that I'm very excited to begin, and I'm happy that the very first shows are going to be in the UK because the fans have always been very supportive of my work, and they're just naturally enthusiastic. They love to talk about and to support the sports entertainment, pro wrestling business. So I think it's a great fit, and hopefully I will, as they say, I won't soil the sheet come showtime, and we'll have some great shows and a lot of fun, some good laughs, and share a lot of information, and maybe some motivational things, maybe some life skills that folks can file away and utilize at some point down the road.
Well, actually, you know, one of my friends actually was at one of Mick Foley's shows that you made a surprise appearance at in LA, and I don't think you have anything to worry about because he said that you were definitely keeping up with Mick Foley that night.
Well, thanks. That's a great compliment. I was that was the first time I had gone to a Mick Foley show, so I appreciate that. That's a nice compliment because Mick's very, very skilled in front of a live audience, and it was a good learning experience for me, quite frankly, because I watched the audience as much as I watched Mick, and then I was able to listen to the Q&As. I think the question and answer session, Kenny, will be really potentially could be very, very entertaining because it's going to depend on what the audience brings. I'm not going to duck any questions. You know, I may not have an answer. You know, it's like somebody, you know, someone's going to inevitably say, "What was your favorite match of all time?" Well, I don't have an answer for that. I don't have an answer for that question. You know, who's your favorite current WWE superstar? I can throw an answer out there, but it's not. What happens is in the day of social media, if you mention one person and you leave somebody out, then you're dissing that person that was left out, which isn't the case at all. But that's how it's positioned sometimes. So no question will be off limits. I'm looking forward to interacting and seeing what the audience is interested in hearing about, and I'm going to talk about my career as well, but my career has involved so many different people, from promoters to wrestlers and other broadcasters and things like that. Yes, it's quite honestly, it's done better quicker than I thought it might. I didn't have anything to reference it to. There was no precedent. This is the first ever. So I didn't have anything to file away. It's, well, here's how we've done before. So the tickets sold quickly, and I'm really thankful and appreciative of that.
Mick Foley, having been in the UK 3 times, and every time someone will ask him some variation of, "Did it hurt when you fell off the cell?" Every time.
Every time.
I guess it's just some questions people like to ask.
Well, you know, if you ask me what's the most memorable match for, you know, I would say that if I had to name, you know, 2 or 3, that Hell in a Cell match in 1998, which has been now, 15 years ago?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Do my math. I get asked about that match every day now that social media has become such a large part of our lives. You know, my Twitter account's got rapidly approaching 900,000 Twitter followers, and I have a website, and so in some form I answer Q&As on my website from fans as regularly as I can, and then, of course, Twitter is never ending. But there's not a day that goes by, and I mean this without any exaggeration, that in some form or fashion, I'm not asked about that match. And sometimes people will just tweet my quotes, and they won't even ask a question. They'll just tweet my quote, good God, they killed him, or whatever, whatever portion of that commentary that they recall. Sometimes I just get a quote. So there's really not a day goes by that I don't get something that doesn't address that particular event. Because of social media, you never get separated from it. You never cut the emotional tie that has bound me to that particular event and that particular match and that particular sequence of that match. Foley going off the top of the cell to the announce table, and then Mick going through the cell to hit the mat, tooth in his nose, and all these things. It's just one of those deals where it's a memory that seems to be everlasting. And I know that the vast majority of the people that are discussing it didn't even see it live. They've seen it on a DVD. They've seen it on YouTube. They've seen it on something other than watching it live when pay-per-views have happened. But it's become a part of the fabric of the legacy of WWE, of Hell in a Cell, of The Undertaker, of Mick Foley, of Jim Ross, of Jerry Lawler. All of us that had a little that touched it in any form, we are forever will be tied to that moment.
It's almost become as symbolic as the Hogan Andre body slam. That visual image is just on that level
right.
now.
Yep, you're right. It was that memorable moment. There have been a few of them, but you're right. That's a very good point. A very bright point that it's symbolic of the Andre Hogan body slam, and most people don't remember anything significantly. Now, there are some, I'm sure, some diehards that remember more of the Andre Hogan match at WrestleMania 3. But the majority of the people remember the body slam. Past that is a crapshoot, and the same could be said, quite frankly, of that Hell in a Cell match. That was a really physical, intense, and pretty amazing match. But what overshadows the match are two moves, two things that happened, two instances. But I think that's a good point. The Hogan Andre Slam and the Hell in a Cell in '98.
Yeah, one of the things that we get when we do this show every week, if we ever talk about commentary teams or commentary duos, I know that you're always put in the category with Jerry Lawler for the partnership that you guys had for so long, but so many fans and so many of our listeners always talk about the 8-month run that you had with Paul Heyman in 2001. I just wondered, could you just kind of briefly talk about maybe why, from your perception, why you think that's still so iconic to some fans?
Well, I think that there are several reasons. I think that one, it came at a very unique time in our business. The Attitude Era, transitioning into the next thing, which was the invasion, the WCW acquisition. It came at a very historic time within the annals of the business. So that's one reason. There was a comfort level with Jerry and I that the fans really embraced during the Monday Night Wars. So the Monday Night Wars ended. WWE won. And all through those Monday Night Wars, the two voices that told the story for WWE were JR and the King. So they got accustomed to that duo. And then when Jerry left, Paul Heyman, as we know, took his place in his chair. But a lot of the fans didn't realize that early on in Heyman's career in the late 80s, early 90s, I gave him his first opportunity to broadcast on a national level because he was my partner at various times on working for WCW, which aired nationally in the States on TBS. So Paul, I handpicked Paul to be my partner in WCW. I think he came in as a manager, young and brash and very, very bright. But brash is a word that can't be used too much about Paul. He was very, headstrong, and his TV persona, as I said on many occasions, was very easy to dislike, which is a compliment for any villain. natural at it. It was very, very good. But he had never done a lot of announcing. He'd cut promos. He'd been a villain manager and did what villain managers do. You know, as Bobby Heenan would say, he distracted people, he tripped people, and he passed the nuts. So that was Heenan's metaphor and analogy for what managers do. There's a whole lot more to it than that. But essentially, he was a manager. So when I went to the booking committee and they said, well, who are you going to work with? And asking me like I had the call, I said, well, you know, I think maybe Paul Heyman would do good. And they were almost relieved to get him out of their hair. That, you know, instead of him being a manager all the time and being deluged with his ideas and his thoughts and his feedback, that I could have him for a while. And so we broadcast together then and had a great chemistry. It was a contrast. You know, he was the New Yorker with a New York accent, and I was the good old boy, the Southern boy from Oklahoma with another distinct accent. So you could always tell who was talking, who was saying what. I was representing good, and he was representing evil. He was as passionate about what he was doing as I was about what I was doing. You know, there were times when he would say things or travel the wrong road for a short distance that I would get frustrated, let those frustrations be known on the air, and then it just became a part of the presentation. You know, it was JR really getting PO'd at Heyman, and Heyman saying something really smart or being a wise ass, and JR reacting in a negative way, where people actually thought that we hated each other, and we never hated each other. We're like anybody else in the business. No one agrees 100% of the time philosophically with somebody else, I don't think. But the fact that we disagreed didn't make us mortal enemies. But there are some people that will still swear to this very day that we hated each other, and we never did. It was always, we played our roles well, and we had great chemistry. Paul was Paul was an entirely different animal than Lawler. Lawler was a wisecracking villain in the beginning when we started working together, but over time, that changed. I thought we were, you know, you can say which was more effective, the King as a bad guy or King as a JR's buddy on the air. I thought they both worked, quite frankly. We had a seamless chemistry almost from day one. But Heyman and I had a completely different dynamic. So it's hard to gauge, you know, what was better, Heyman and JR or Lawler and JR. Most you're comparing two different things. I love working with Paul. It was always challenging. He was defiant. He was highly intelligent. He could make his point, and he was challenging in that respect, creatively challenging to work with, because he would challenge you. And then the competitive element came out, and I would challenge him. It was a lot more stressful, intense working with Paul than it was in the comfort level of working with Jerry, especially the last several years of our relationship, because they're two entirely different people. Just completely, and they're both amazingly gifted and amazingly talented, but they're both two entirely different people, on and off the screen. So it was a blast. Some people really believe that the best commentary that has ever been done at WrestleMania was at WrestleMania 17. I don't know that to be true or untrue, because it's a subjective question. Mm-hmm. But Heyman and I in the Houston Astrodome, that was another Austin Rock main event, but that card was loaded. We just say the TLC tag match on that was pretty amazing, and you know, it goes right down the list of just so many great matches on that card. You had a great canvas to paint upon. You know, they made great music, and we were able to provide the right lyrics. So I don't know if it was the best match, the best WrestleMania ever commentated, because, again, how do you know? How do you quantify it? But I know a lot of people liked it a lot and still talk about it.
When you come over for your tour, Jim, it's going to be, SummerSlam will have happened. And I think a lot of people are very excited about the way the WWE's product is going right now. It's, you know, a lot of characters are really kind of gaining steam. And I just wondered, looking into SummerSlam this coming weekend, what kind of match or two are you really looking forward to watching as a fan?
Well, I think that I think that Daniel Bryan will really push John Cena I think that's going to be, not that John Cena needs pushing, but my point is no one in WWE wrestles at the pace of Daniel Bryan. No one wrestles at the pace, nor do they have the versatility of Daniel Bryan. And when you're on them in a main event, likely closing the show at a major pay-per-view, everything is, all the senses are heightened. It's a lot more, there's going to be a lot more motivation. There's going to be a lot more, a lot more, their heart's going to beat a little faster because of the environment that they're in and the assignment that they have to close this major pay-per-view in a big, big way. So as professionals, they're challenged to close this show and follow everything else that we've seen for the last several hours, or a couple hours anyway. And so I think that match I'm very, very intrigued by, because I think that John Cena is going to show people that he has many more abilities in the ring than some people, the Cena haters, give him credit for. So I think he's going to be just fine. I think he's going to open some eyes there, because Daniel Bryan's going to bring everything he's got in his toolbox, and he should. And then it's going to be up to John Cena to be able to interface with that onslaught and to raise his game to that pace. And that's not a knock on Cena. It's just that nobody wrestles at the pace of Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan's pace and his acceleration and his second gear is unmatched right now in the business, as far as I'm concerned. The other match that I think is going to be I'm extremely interested in are between two guys that I know very well and I have great respect for because of their physical toughness, is CM Punk and Brock Lesnar. Of course, I go all the way back with Brock Lesnar from day one, because we recruited him. He was a junior, he had one more year left of university, and he was a great amateur wrestler, as everybody knows. So we recruited Brock Lesnar while he was in college, maintained our relationship with him for 2 years. So we were in his ear, and our relationship with his coach was a 2-year process. So I knew Brock, knew of him, met him, followed him 2 years before he ever signed with WWE. So I would think, that takes me all the way back to his beginnings. And I know how physical he is. He's amazingly gifted athletically. You don't see guys that big that are that athletic. He's very, very quick. Could probably beat most of the guys on the roster in a foot race. And then you have CM Punk, who's, as he says, the best in the world. CM Punk, I've never seen CM Punk have a bad match. And I've seen CM Punk wrestle so many different guys with so many different styles, and he always adapts, and he always brings out the best in whomever he wrestles. He's got that unique ability to be unselfish and play to the strengths of whomever he's in the ring with, which then makes the match become a success, and the presentation as a whole become extremely memorable. These two guys like to push their opponents. They like to see how far they can get them to go. I think they're both very physical. You're not going to. Of course, some guys, are not as intense or more careful about how hard they hit somebody at times. These two aren't. So I think, with that said, it'll be a very physical matchup. I wrote a blog a few days ago that said something to the effect of that I thought that Cena and Daniel Bryan could have a match of the year candidate, but it might not be the best match at SummerSlam. So that shows you my level of anticipation that I expect both those matches to be stellar and extraordinary. So I think the show really is shaping up to be very intriguing, because so many new talents are beginning to find their way and to become more established. So that has been the plan all along, and that's why our developmental program in Orlando at the NXT vehicle is so crucial to the success long-term of WWE. I'll just put it to you this way. NXT has to be a success for WWE to survive long-term. There is no more important function, no more important entity, no more important facet of WWE than talent development. And that starts in Orlando at the WWE Performance Center. We've got a lot of UK kids over there that are working now to try to get to that next level, and that's where they're going through that process now. So it's crucial. So those kids that come out of that program, some fans have little patience. They think they should be overnight sensations, and that rarely happens. So if people are patient, the talent are diligent, maintain their work ethic, and to get better every day, and learn something new every day, and they represent themselves as a total professional every day in all phases, then what happens is supposed to happen. If it's meant to be, it will happen if you do those things. Mm-hmm. So it just takes a while. The Wyatt family, the Shield, Big E Langston, Damian Sandow, all those guys are still works in progress. They're not where they're going to be. They're not even close to where they're going to be. But, you already hear people say, well, when are they going to split the Shield up? Who's going to be the big star of the Shield? And I get this all, who's going to be the first Shield member to wrestle and who's the main event WrestleMania? How in the hell would I know? How do you definitively say, how do you answer that question? I've been around a long time. I can't answer it. I don't know. There's too many variables that I can't control. And some of them are variables that talents can't control. They can't predict when they're going to be injured. They can't predict when things happen that are completely out of their hands. So, but the encouraging part is we've got a great young crew that are continuing to evolve. And I think that's what's made many of the facets of SummerSlam and subsequent pay-per-views this year, and then going into WrestleMania 30 next year, really exciting, because it isn't an option that these talents, we hope they get better. The mandate is you must get better. And for anyone to get better at their vocation, they have to devote the proper amount of time, dedication, and perseverance. So that's where we are with that. I think there's much bigger things on the horizon for all these kids. And some of them are going to arrive at their destination before others. That's inevitable. That's the human element. But it'll be a fun journey.
Definitely. And the Performance Center seems to have a lot of buzz among wrestling fans. Do you think that I mean, obviously, today there's no way to bring back a territory system, and you will get people, that will just complain, oh, there's no territories anymore. But do you think having something like this Performance Center and getting to do things like that is kind of the closest thing that you can do to sort of replicating that sort of feel to things?
Absolutely. People that want that long for the territory days are those that are very vocal about the demise of the territories and the current training environment. Really, they don't really have a clue. The territories destroyed themselves, which I'll talk about on my tour. I experienced it. I was there. It's not hearsay. I was there. I know what happened to the territories. But in a perfect world, if territories could exist in all these different regions of the world and have great local television that you could watch a fresh show every week, that would be a great scenario. But to create that infrastructure from a business standpoint is extremely costly. It's like now, the cable television and satellite television has overtaken local TV. It has in the States. I can't speak for the UK, but national television is where it's at. In other words, before cable came about, the only TV that was available in these marketplaces were their local stations. And so you saw one product. You didn't see wrestling from everywhere in the world. You didn't have pay-per-view. You didn't have the YouTube. You didn't have the Internet. It was a whole different landscape. So try to go back now and to do a real hot, locally produced television show that's only seen in your region or in your on your local TVs is, I don't know how you could pull it off. I would not invest one dime in that operation, as much as I love the business, because I know that it would fail. You're finding talents. People want to see stars, and you want to see the best, and the best are those that play and perform on a national basis. I would think that do the local football teams in the UK, the local teams, the club teams, they don't get the exposure that the Barclay League or the Premier League get, right?
No. Not
even close. They have a local following, and they have small attendance, and And all the great players, where do the great players go? They go to those other big leagues. Why do they do that? Because they can make more money. And athletes have a short shelf life, so they're going to make all the money that they can. I'm just watching TV here and seeing Real Madrid just beat Chelsea 3-1. That scores on American television. They don't have any club scores on TV here. Nobody knows those teams are the smaller football teams in the UK. That would be the same equivalent of having a territory in nowadays. If you're not on national television, you don't count. Is it fair? Probably not. But is it the reality? Absolutely. So with all those things said, the WWE Performance Center is the next best thing. And in the long run, as we continue to evolve that program, that process, it might even, it's going to be better than it is today. Because those kids get to work live events, they get to work on their promos, they have great coaching. It's the training facility. Hey, if nothing else, our strength and conditioning program is going to make some guys help them become stars, because they're going to get healthier, they're going to get stronger, they're going to get bigger, they're going to become more athletic because of how they're trained. And we're talking about not just learning the ability to take a body slam or to apply a headlock. We're talking about physical conditioning, because the great physical conditioning is going to improve their look. It's going to improve their core strength. It's going to lessen injuries. It's a win-win in every phase. And that's never been offered in our business before with this organizational structure. Never, ever. And next year will be my 40th year in the business, and it's nothing, there's nothing like it ever. So, just looking at it from a guy that loves athletics and loves athletic wrestlers, and then you're gonna see that these athletes we're recruiting are going to get healthier and bigger and stronger, have more flexibility. Their core strength is going to improve, and again, I think it will help decrease the amount of injuries that we have. It's not going to eliminate them. Can't eliminate them.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to lessen them, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's definitely exciting. And I remember reading a quote from you recently, and I thought it was a really kind of positive quote. And somebody had asked you what your favorite era was, and you said your favorite era is the era that you're in because you're still a wrestling fan. I thought it was quite uplifting to hear.
Well, we can't change the past. The history is something that we all can study, we can all learn from, but we can't change. Tomorrow isn't guaranteed for any of us. So all we can really affect is today. So I've had wonderful experiences in every era, every year that I've been in the business, because I was lucky enough to do what I truly love doing. And there were eras where I barely made enough money to buy groceries or pay the rent, and then there were eras where I did significantly better. There were eras where I had no health issues, and then there were eras where I had significant health issues. It's a journey. It's called life. And so I live life today because I can't change yesterday, and I don't have any control over tomorrow, because you never know when it's your turn. It's time to go. Every time I hear of someone passing away that was one of my people, my peers, it saddens me. But I never thought that they would pass this on this particular occasion, which just goes to illustrate my point. Tomorrow tomorrow's not a guarantee. So, yeah, I'm a living today guy.
Well, Jim, you've been so generous today with your time with us, and people can still get tickets to come and see your tour in Manchester and Cardiff. There are limited tickets left in Cardiff, limited tickets left in Manchester. If you want to get tickets for it and ask Jim whatever you want, ask him about driving to Shreveport to kill the $1 Million Man, ask him about his friendship with Steve Austin, whatever you like, I'm sure he'll give you an answer. And you can get the tickets online at psievents.eventbrite.co.uk. We're going to put the information up on our Facebook page, our Twitter page, and also you've got a website as well where you do blogs and Q&As and stuff. Now, I've got to ask you this. This is just a little bit of fun, but for my own personal amusement, I'd love it if you would answer this question for me. What frustrates you more, being asked who The Undertaker is going to fight at WrestleMania 30 or when Randy Savage is going to go in the Hall of Fame?
Oh, man. Probably the Randy Savage question, because, The Undertaker will wrestle at WrestleMania 30. And who he will wrestle will be a quality, high-level, must-see match, because it'll be someone trying to beat the streak. So that's going to happen. The Randy Savage question has been ongoing forever, it seems like. And especially after Randy, had his untimely heart attack, passed away, it's just become, almost an obsession with some people. And I appreciate their obsession, but I don't have an answer. I don't know who's going to the Hall of Fame next year. I'm not in that loop. I rarely hear who's going to the Hall of Fame before I see it on TV. And people say, well, how can that be true? Well, I like it that way. I like being a fan. I like still getting the feeling of being surprised. That's why I detest spoilers. I understand that websites, and there's a lot of really good wrestling websites out there, and there are I understand podcasts, a lot of really good podcasts out there, including this one. And if they choose in the course of doing their work to give out the spoilers, that's their prerogative. However, it's my prerogative not to read them or listen to them, because I like to watch the show as it happens. I don't read the spoilers for SmackDown, and the SmackDown is taped in the States on Tuesday. It airs here on Friday. I choose not to watch. I want to watch the show. I don't want to know the ending of the movie. I don't want to know some fan's perspective of it was a good show or a bad show when they were sitting in the audience trying to take notes, and they weren't even able to hear the commentary. I don't feel that qualifies them to tell me in total it was a great show or a must-see or this is no reason to watch this show or whatever. So I'm not a spoiler guy. So I don't know when Randy is going. Do I believe Randy Savage will be in the WWE Hall of Fame someday? Absolutely. Without a doubt. Do I know when it's going to be? Nope. I certainly do not.
Great. Okay, well, thanks again, Jim, and hopefully one day we can have you on again, and I really wish you all the best with the tour.
Very good. I appreciate all your help. Thank you so much. I enjoyed talking to you. Be well. Bye.